My name is Claire Morgan. I'm 34 years old. And the night I heard my sister whisper, "She doesn't deserve him," I thought she was talking about my money. She wasn't. She was talking about my husband, Daniel, the billionaire everyone in my family thought I had somehow gotten lucky enough to marry. What they didn't know was that Daniel had never chosen me because of my money, and I had never chosen him because of his. But my sister didn't believe that. She believed there was a woman in our family who deserved Daniel more than I did, and she was determined to prove it. What happened next nearly destroyed my marriage, but it also revealed something about my family that I wish I'd known years earlier. Because sometimes the person trying hardest to take your life away from you isn't a stranger. Sometimes it's the person sitting beside you at Thanksgiving. It started at my mother's birthday dinner in Austin, Texas. There were 12 of us around the table. My mother, my sister Rachel, my Aunt Susan, a few cousins, and Daniel and me. Daniel had just turned 41, and despite being one of the wealthiest men in the country, he still hated being the center of attention. He wore a simple navy suit, no tie, and spent most of dinner asking my aunt about her garden. That's the thing people never understood about him. They saw the billionaire. I saw the man who remembered how I took my coffee, the man who called my father every Sunday before my dad died, the man who once drove 3 hours in the rain because I mentioned, almost jokingly, that I missed my hometown barbecue. But Rachel saw something completely different. She saw a fortune. She saw a last name. And, apparently, she saw a husband who belonged with someone else. Dinner had just ended when I walked into the hallway to get my purse. That's when I heard Rachel was speaking to my mother in the kitchen. Her voice was low, almost a whisper. "She doesn't deserve him." I stopped. My hand froze around my purse. My mother didn't answer immediately. Then she said, "Rachel, that's enough." "No, Mom, you know I'm right. Not tonight." "Why? Because she's sitting in there pretending everything is perfect?" I couldn't hear my mother's response, but I didn't need to. I had already heard enough. I walked back into the dining room. Rachel looked at me. For half a second, neither of us spoke. Then she smiled. "Everything okay?" I smiled back. Perfect, and I sat beside my husband. But something had changed, because now I had a question. What exactly did my sister think I had done to deserve Daniel? I didn't have to wait long for the answer. 3 days later, Rachel called me. "Claire, we need to talk." "About what?" "Daniel." I closed my eyes. "Rachel, if this is about what I heard at Mom's, it is." She sounded nervous. Then she said something that made my stomach tighten. "You need to tell him about your..." I went silent. "My father has been dead for 3 years." "I know." "Then what does he have to do with Daniel?" Rachel didn't answer. Instead, she said, "Have you ever wondered why Dad left everything to you?" My heart skipped. "What are you talking about? You really don't know?" "Know what?" Rachel hung up. I stared at my phone. Then I called the one person who might have an answer, my father's attorney, Michael Reeves. He answered on the second ring. When I told him Rachel had contacted me, there was a long silence. Finally, he said, "Claire, I think it's time you came in." Michael's office was 20 minutes from my house. I arrived before noon. He pulled an old file from a locked cabinet. "I've been waiting 3 years to give you this." Inside was my father's will and a trust agreement I had never seen. I read the first page, then the second, then I stopped. My father had left me a commercial property portfolio outside Austin, 3 office buildings, several long-term leases, and a controlling interest in the company that managed them. The estimated value? $28 million. I looked at Michael. "Why didn't I know about this?" "Your father wanted it that way." "Why?" "Because he didn't want your marriage influenced by money." My throat tightened. How long was I supposed to keep it secret? Until your 5th wedding anniversary. I stared at the date. I had been married to Daniel for 4 years. 1 year remained. Then Michael handed me another document. There was one more condition. I read it. If I transferred the assets because of pressure from family, emotional manipulation, or financial coercion, the trust could be challenged. My father's words were handwritten beneath the clause. "Claire has spent her whole life taking care of everyone else. I want her to learn that protecting herself is not selfish." I felt tears burn my eyes. My father knew me too well. Then Michael said something that made my blood. Rachel knows about the trust. I looked up. How? She found some of your father's old financial records after his funeral. And she told Daniel? No. That answer confused me. Then what does she want? Michael looked at me for a long moment. I think you already know. That evening, I told Daniel everything. We were sitting across from each other at our kitchen island. No television, no music, just the sound of the clock. My father left me $28 million. Daniel didn't move. How long have you known? Since the day after his funeral. His eyes dropped. And you never told me? No, why? I swallowed. Because I was afraid. Of me? Of what money does to people. He looked away. I continued. My father spent his entire life watching people change when they discovered what he owned. I didn't want that happening to us. Daniel was quiet. Then he asked, "Did you think I'd leave you if I found out?" "No." "Did you think I'd take it?" "No." "Then what were you afraid of?" I whispered, "That you'd never know whether I loved you or your life." Daniel stared at me. And for the first time since I'd known him, I saw something break in his expression. "You should have trusted me." "I know." He stood up. "I need some time." Then he walked upstairs. I sat there alone, and for the first time, I wondered if my sister had already won. At 11:47 that night, my phone buzzed. "Rachel, one message. See what happens when you keep secrets?" I didn't answer. Another message arrived. "You still don't understand what I'm trying to save you from." I typed, "Then tell me." Her reply came immediately. "Daniel doesn't love the real you." I stared at the screen. Then came another message. "He loves the version of you that doesn't have $28 million. I almost laughed. Almost. Because there was one problem with Rachel's theory. Daniel had become a billionaire long before I ever knew what my father had left me. He didn't need my money, and I didn't need his. But Rachel wasn't finished. Her final message said, "Ask him why he chose you." I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, Daniel came downstairs. He looked exhausted, but calmer. "I called Michael," he said. My heart dropped. "You did?" "Yes." "What did he tell you?" "That your father trusted you." I didn't know what to say. Daniel walked toward Claire. "I'm not angry about the money." "Then what?" "You kept a part of yourself locked away from me." He took my hand. "And I need you to understand something." I looked at him. "I didn't marry you because you were poor." A tiny smile appeared on his face. "I married you because you were the only person I knew who didn't care how much money I had." My eyes filled with tears. He continued, "When we met, you thought I was an architect." I laughed through my tears. "You told me you worked in real estate." "I did. You forgot to mention the part where you owned half the company. I was trying to impress you. You were terrible at it." He laughed. Then his face became serious. "I don't want your $28 million. He squeezed my hand. "I want my wife." That should have been the end. But Rachel had one more move. 2 days later, she came to our house. She wasn't alone. My mother was with her. Rachel placed an envelope on the table. "You deserve to know everything." I didn't touch it. "What is it?" "Dad's final letter." My heart stopped. "My father left me a letter?" Rachel nodded. "You weren't supposed to get it yet." "Why?" "Because Dad wanted you to be married 5 years before you knew the whole truth." I looked at my mother. She looked away. I opened the envelope. The letter began, "Claire, if you're reading this, someone has probably made you feel guilty for protecting what I left you." My hands started shaking. Then I read the next line. "And if that person is Rachel, listen carefully." I looked up. Rachel went pale. My father knew. He had known exactly what would happen. The letter continued. "Rachel has always believed that love means being chosen over someone else. She will try to convince you that you don't deserve the life you've built. Don't believe her." I couldn't breathe. Then came the sentence that changed everything. "Your sister doesn't want Daniel because she loves him. She wants him because she believes having what you have will finally make her equal to you." Rachel started crying. "That's not fair." I looked at her. "Isn't it?" She didn't answer. And then, quietly, she admitted it. "I thought if Daniel chose me," she wiped her face. "Dad would..." I stared at her. "What does that mean?" "You were always his favorite." There it was. Not Daniel, not the money, not jealousy over my marriage. The real wound had been there since childhood. Rachel didn't want my husband. She wanted proof that she was finally the daughter my father should have chosen. Daniel came downstairs. He had heard enough. Rachel looked. Daniel, please. He shook his head. You told me Claire didn't deserve me. Rachel began crying. I was angry. No. His voice remained calm. You were jealous. She looked at me, then back at him. You don't understand. Daniel nodded. You're right. He looked at me. I understand Claire. Then he turned back to Rachel. And I understand something else. What? You didn't want me. Rachel froze. You wanted to win. Nobody spoke. Daniel continued. And Claire isn't a prize. He took my hand. She never was. Rachel covered her face. For the first time, I felt no anger toward her, just sadness, because I finally understood that she had spent years competing in a race I never entered. Rachel came back 3 days later. This time, she came alone. She stood on my porch with her hands in her coat pockets. I was wrong. I didn't say anything. I hated that Dad trusted you. I know. I hated that you married Daniel. I know. And I hated that you never seemed to need anything from me. That one hurt. Because it was honest. She looked at me. I thought if I could take something from you, I'd finally feel like I had won. I nodded. What do you want now? She hesitated. Help. The old Claire would have opened her wallet. I almost did. Then I remembered my father's letter. Protecting yourself is not selfish. So I said, I'll help you. Rachel looked relieved. But I won't give you money. Her expression fell. I can connect you with a financial advisor. I can help you build a business plan. I can introduce you to people who can help you get back on your feet. But you won't just write me a check? No. She looked at me for a long, then she nodded. You really changed. No, I smiled sadly. I finally stopped changing myself for everyone else. 6 months later, my life looked almost exactly the same. The same house, the same kitchen, the same coffee maker, the same man beside me, but I felt different. Daniel and I had learned how to talk about money without fear. We had learned that privacy and secrecy weren't always the same thing. And we had learned that trust isn't proven by handing someone every part of yourself immediately. It's built by knowing that when the truth finally comes out, the person standing beside you won't run. Rachel started a small consulting business. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't easy, but it was hers. We weren't as close as we had been as children. Maybe we never would be, but we could sit at the same table without pretending. And sometimes, that's what healing looks like. Not forgetting, not becoming best friends again, just no longer allowing the past to control the future. As for my father's $28 million, I kept it. Not because I needed it, because my father had left it to me for a reason. He wanted his daughter to understand that she was allowed to have something that didn't belong to everyone else. And eventually, I understood the lesson. My sister once whispered, she doesn't deserve him. But she had been asking the wrong question. The question was never whether I deserved Daniel. The question was whether I knew my own worth without him. And now I do. Daniel isn't my prize. My inheritance isn't my identity. And my sister's approval isn't the measure of my life. I'm Claire Morgan. I'm 34 years old. I'm a wife. I'm a daughter. I'm a sister. And yes, I'm a woman who inherited $28 million. But the greatest thing my father left me wasn't money. It was permission. Permission to stop proving that I deserved a seat at someone else's table. Because I finally understood something. If someone makes you earn your place in their life every day, that's not belonging. And if loving your family requires you to become smaller, sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say no and never apologize for it again. But before I go, I want to leave you with one question. Not about money, not about billionaires, about family. If you were in my position, would you forgive your sister after discovering that she tried to destroy your marriage because she was jealous of the life you built? And there's an even harder question. If she genuinely admitted that her jealousy came from feeling less loved by your parents, would that change your decision? Would you give her another chance? Or would you believe that some betrayals permanently change a relationship? I genuinely want to know what you would do. Don't just comment yes or no. Tell me why. Because your answer might be exactly what another person needs to hear. Maybe you're the person who has been betrayed by a sibling. Maybe you're the one who has spent years keeping the peace. Or maybe you're the person who finally learned that saying no doesn't make you cruel. It means you finally learned where your boundaries begin. So tell me honestly, would you forgive Rachel? I'll be reading your comments. And if this story touched you, made you angry, surprised you, or reminded you of something in your own family, please give this video a like. It helps more than you might think. And if you're new here, welcome to Calm Family Secrets. This channel is about the hidden side of family life betrayal, jealousy, secret relationships, unexpected truths, quiet revenge, forgiveness, and the moments when ordinary people finally find the courage to stand up for themselves. If you enjoy emotional family stories with twists, life lessons, and endings that stay with you, subscribe to Calm Family Secrets and turn on notifications for the next story. Until then, remember this: you don't have to become smaller to make someone else feel bigger. You don't have to surrender your happiness to keep your family comfortable. And sometimes, the strongest form of revenge isn't hurting the person who hurt you. It's building a life they can no longer control. I'm Claire, and for the first time in my life, I know exactly where I belong.